In this final segment of Maller's blueprint, we zoom out and confront the real problem. The fiat system is a treadmill you can't outrun. Every second you work, central planners drain the value of your paycheck. Maller's argues Bitcoin is the only escape, and now a new wave of Bitcoin-backed loans is emerging to solve the hodler's dilemma. Today we break down the risks, the opportunities, and the warning signs you need to understand. In summary, this is, one of the interesting interventions from Jack. I liked the way he explained the history behind why the fiat run system, why we are running into this cycle, in a vicious cycle of a fiat world that we live in, where we are enslaved in our jobs, and for every second that is gone by, we are losing that second of devaluation of our hard-earned day's check. And no matter how fast we run the wheel, no matter how fast or good we are doing in our job, we're never going to be able to beat the rate of inflation, because it's controlled by the elite, it's controlled by those central planners, the central bankers, the governments that own the money printing machine. And every time they do that, they effectively steal our time and energy conserved in fiat currencies. And that is the issue, and why Bitcoin is the only solution, the only hedge against that atrocity, and not the likes of gold. And this led to his final part of his speech about the emergence of this need in the marketplace for Bitcoin investors to actually use their Bitcoin collateral to take out fiat loans to cover their day-to-day expenses without the need to part any of their Bitcoin holdings as a result during the life of that loan. And also they won't be taxed because they're not effectively selling their Bitcoin holdings. They're just depositing their Bitcoin collateral in order to take out a fiat loan. So that is a summary of. And the last point I want to talk about on this Bitcoin-backed loans business, because these are the type of products we're going to be seeing an awful lot more of. But I have to add a caveat and a warning that you should do your leg and research, because the Strike company headed by Jack, even though he may have good intentions to solve the Bitcoin hodler's dilemma, as I explained earlier on, they are still nonetheless a counterparty risk. They are still a counterparty because in effect you're going to be depositing your Bitcoin collateral, even though you're going to have access to it during the duration of the loan itself. There is still nonetheless that counterparty risk, which you need to be mindful about and take that into consideration if you ever decide to follow that route in order to take out a fiat loan once you deposit your Bitcoin collateral in these Bitcoin-backed loan platform type products. I just want to give you that caveat that you need to do your research, and there are many ways to do that. The first obvious one is to ensure that these type of issuers or Bitcoin-backed loans are a registered security by your local jurisdiction financial regulator. That is, for me, would be my top recommendation. Of course, you need to do your other due diligence. You actually need to read their manifesto of the product they are selling to you, familiarizing yourself with what that Bitcoin backed loan product is all about. What are the terms and conditions, right? What are the protocol arrangements to access your Bitcoins at any moment in time of their fiat loan, and if there's any penalties for any kind of preemptive withdrawal of your Bitcoin loan. So if you want to back out from the fiat loan, are there any penalties or fees that you need to be concerned about? So that is what I mean by performing your due diligence. And importantly, as I said earlier on, to please check that the Bitcoin-backed loan company is a registered security in your jurisdiction by your financial regulator. So hopefully you found today's episode insightful. It gives you that idea that you're seeing clearly that the Bitcoin ecosystem is getting larger, and there are more actors involved. There are more Bitcoin treasury companies like the likes of Strategy invest into the Bitcoin asset class, and not just them, it's the Bitcoin development companies, for which I would tag or classify the Strike company headed by Jack that you saw is an example for me as a Bitcoin development company, because these are the companies that are going to be producing these financial products, these Bitcoin backed loan products into the marketplace. Besides being a Bitcoin treasury company themselves, where they issue their debt and then use the debt to buy Bitcoins and hold it in their corporate treasury stash. But in addition to that, what Strike is doing, interestingly enough, is to produce these financial Bitcoin backed loan products in order to solve the Bitcoin hodler's dilemma in order to earn yield without the need to actually sell and part any of their Bitcoin holdings, thereby avoiding any taxable event at the result. But like I said, the caveats still remain. There are still nonetheless a counterparty risk involved because there are counterparties. They're going to be still custodying your Bitcoin deposit holdings or collateral in order to take out those fiat loans. So that is something you need to be mindful about, and importantly to do your own research. So that wraps Maller's full thesis: the fiat trap, the hodler's dilemma, and the rise of Bitcoin-backed loans as a way to unlock liquidity without actually selling your hardest asset. But the caveat is real. Counterparty risks never disappears. If you're considering these products, you need to understand the terms and conditions, the regulators, and the risks. If this breakdown helped clarify the landscape, hit that like button, share it forward, and subscribe for the next deep dive. That's all I have for you for today. If you value clarity on Bitcoin, blockchain technology, and real-world assets tokenization, stay alert. Subscribe and enable all notifications to stay ahead of the curve. Share this episode with those who need to understand what's coming, friends, family, and colleagues. This channel aims to deliver insight, no noise, and no hype. Subscribe now.